Here was a pretty rough game against a Krenko mob boss. This is game 2. Game 1 was no problem at all. It went as you'd expect. But in game 2 I decided to keep a sketchy hand. Sketchy because it doesn't really have any search. It just has acceleration, other than Tezzeret. And then my opponent, who's going first, of course, leads off with Soul Ring. So he's threatening a turn to Krenko, and I've got really nothing here. Instead of a Krenko, though, he drops War Chief, so actually possibly worse in a way, although he gave me an opportunity to play an island in a counter here. Possibly a mistake. I actually let him know that if he gets me to 2, I will concede. Yeah, there it is. He's mentioning it. So turn 3 he plays Krenko's Command, putting 2 goblins into play, and then with haste, of course. And then Krenko himself, putting 4 goblins into play. So this game's gone from like I might be in trouble to a totally insane position on his side. All because of the power of Soul Ring. So I Bant Charm away the mob boss now. Obviously I can't let him untap since it will just produce more tokens. And I mean, you know it's bad when you don't kill their Goblin War Chief. So I'm at 24. Remember, I'm at technically 22 since I'm going to concede it 2. So I've got to find something here. I dump Winter Orb, obviously useless right now, and Worn Power Stone just too slow. Get the Strand down, get the Lantern down, and the Monolith. And I was actually thinking about dropping Queen, but what I was really concerned about was if I rely on Queen as a defense, and he's got one of those red, the multiple red cards that steal your creature for a turn, I would die. And even if he didn't, I mean, I throw a Queen down, make a guy or 2, and get overrun. Meanwhile, he's over here playing Arms Dealer, so there's no chance that Queen would live long enough to block anyway. So during my upkeep, I sacked a Strand. I kind of wanted to wait and see what my life total was before I sacked it, which is why I used it for mana off the Lantern last turn. Get a fact, so I dig. And finally we get a tutor, a couple of them in fact. In theory I could just take Muddle the Mixture and then transmute it for Demonic and then Demonic for what I want. But he makes a split like that, so I go ahead and just take the easy pile, Mystical Tutor. And I throw out Bait. I really just want him to attack Tezzeret quite a bit, because at this point it's Mox Opal that gains me 4 life, potentially. So he has a Hasty Goblin replica. And he sends 4 points of damage at it and all the rest at me, which takes me to 7. Now if he would have attacked me, I would be at 4. Or rather 3, which 3 minus 2, I would have technically lived, since I did tell him I would concede at 2. So really, unless he had Burn in his hand, he made the right call. And then he sacks the replica to kill my Lantern. I guess to keep me off of red, or something. I don't know. I suppose killing the Lantern was the right call there. If you can kill 1 more artifact, you can turn off the Mox Opal, for example. So I Impulse, because it's more expensive than Mystical. I'm going to Mystical during my upkeep. Take the Merchant Scroll in order to set my position up. Make the obvious play. Now, if you had attacked if you hadn't attacked Tezzeret and put me down to 1 here, then Tezzeret would just have tapped and untapped the Mox Opal. The advantage Tezzeret would have given me from this position would have been easily insurmountable for him. So I think he did make the right call there. So Sparksmith, sure, you can have a Sparksmith. But 2 more creatures, no, that's a little too much. So I'm at 4. I've just had almost no luck with top decks. Luckily, Factor Fiction went around the top decking issue basically. So I really need more cards in hand, and I also want to create a problem for him, so I go ahead and get Staff. And this guy just keeps on with the pressure. 4 goblins from a goblin rally. So now I have to think pretty carefully here, because remembering my promise to concede at 2, I mean, if I shoot a creature and abyss one of his creatures and he attacks for 2, I'll be at 4. Then I shoot an abyss one and I will live, but I really don't want to take any more damage at all if I can help it. Because right now I'm out of lightning bolt range, for one thing. Goblin grenade range I'm in, but if I can clear his goblins out, then he would have to draw both a grenade and a goblin, assuming he's playing it. So I just go ahead and will now. And it's certainly not the greatest will. And I work it out that I can definitely get Tez down, but I do have to take a point of damage from that. So now I'm in lightning bolt range. Luckily, this turn he has nothing. Unfortunately, I also have nothing. So I try to press my luck. Hopefully I'll find something with the staff. Get down a blocker and make a few slivers so that if he can take it and give it haste with the last card in his hand, I can just trump with a sliver. But he has Chaos Warp, and my top card is not a permanent, so it will just sit on top of my deck. Deep Analysis not so great when you're at 3. And off the top he peels a Recruiter, so game on again. Retrieving his Commander, Siege Gang, and a Goblin Ringleader, and of course a War Chief, so that's a lethal pull. If he casts the Ringleader, I'm dead. And of course I clear out the Recruiter. And make the desperation play with Tezzeret. I cast the Deep and draw 2. Of course I can't flash it back, but at this point, I mean, my hand's just complete garbage. I need a new hand altogether, so I go get Scroll Rack and give myself a new hand. And look at that, no counters whatsoever. So how am I going to deal with Ringleader? Fortunately, there's another mode for spec. And I just spec his library up. Here's an opportunity for you to take a look at it if you're interested. And, you know, I'm looking through here, and there is a Goblin Grenade in there somewhere. So that's the card I definitely don't want him to draw, but there's not much else by way of burn, other than perhaps Siege Gang Commander. So he has now shuffled his library. Get down with the Mind Stone. Oops. Guess he still remembers the spec. And then from here, I'm able to set up the win. So, not sure if you see it, but let you figure out what it is. It's obviously get Vess, and then fetch the card that guarantees to win. Yep, you guessed it. Counterspell on a stick and a discard outlet against an empty hand. Now I can just start swinging. And that's it. He gives up. I hope you enjoyed the game. See you next time.